Hi, how are you?
Nice to see you. How are things with you? How's Napa?
No, Napa's good. I feel like the fires from 17 made us more resilient, I would say. It seems like people are kind of recovering and back on track and thinking about fire prevention and replants and things like that. So,
And so what's the general philosophy and what are you guys trying to do?
well, it's evolving a little bit, but I think being able to make, really special single vineyard wines or very small production wines, and then making and having those be a higher level, a higher tier, and then making, the Napa Valley Cabernet will be a bigger blend and it'll be much more affordable, but made with the same philosophy. So still trying to make something of good quality.
Is it all purchased fruit then?
It is all purchased fruit. Mhm.
Okay. So tell me about 2018, your take on the whole thing. Of course, I've heard, the stories and long harvest, and it sounded like, you could really do pretty much what you wanted. And of course,
Yeah.
I've tasted like 1,100 wines. And it's interesting, like some people picked, picked at the right times, made super balanced wine, but some people insisted on picking late, and I found it hard to believe, but made alcoholic wines, which is really crazy in a vintage
Yeah.
like 18. But what was it like for you?
So 18 was awesome. I mean, we had lots of rainfall and beautiful canopies, and then we had a crop that really balanced the canopies. There was great dappled light. I mean, it was such a nice, long, beautiful growing season, really without extremes. Nice canopy, so we didn't have issues with burn or trying to get shade cloth up, or overexposure, or not enough leaves for ripeness. I mean, really, it was terrific. And then I do remember the harvest feeling like it was going on forever. And I remember talking to one grower in particular for my own fruit, and he was saying, I think we can let this stuff just hang out here for weeks. And I thought about it, and I thought, yeah, you could, but
Why?
at some point you're gaining, and then you're going to plateau, and then you're going to lose. So
Exactly.
that always happens. It's just, it was much flatter. That was a much flatter transitional change and curve.
And was 2019 very much the same?
19 was, except we had a little more heat right around Labor Day. But it was very similar. It was really similar. Funny enough, though, I feel like the wines are a little bit different. I feel like 18 is kind of it's the perfect amount of everything. So there's perfect plushness, perfect tannin, perfect acidity, perfect aromatics. Like there's purity, there's just everything. They're really just, I mean, it's maybe the most likable vintage since, I don't know, a long time.
Yeah. I think it's so funny you say that. I have to admit, I was almost a little bit disappointed in myself that it's so likable, but at the same time, I was still thinking, oh, 13, 16's better because there's more structure and density. And not that I go for super dense and, the old school Napa wines, but it was the whole likability, should that be the new benchmark? You know what I'm saying? And drinkability and likability is really important to me. But there was still that tendency to say, yeah, and likable is the perfect way to describe it. But then it's not 13, 16. There's still, if we have to change our paradigm for fine wine from Napa Valley, like we have to rethink it slightly.
Yeah, I think what I like about 18 the most is the textural. They're so textural, like,
Yeah.
God, they're just in the palate. They're just beautiful. And I think if they were just like so in the palate and they were likable, then they would just be boring. But
No, but I understand what you say by it's not like likable for a better word. Like they really are. You drink them and you have a smile.
delicious.
Yeah, exactly.
They're
And
just
early on,
delicious.
like you drink, like, okay, I want to drink this,
Yeah.
and that's a really great sign. And it's so interesting. We haven't really seen something like that in Napa. Maybe you're right. Maybe never. I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know what I can compare it to. I mean, I think the closest you could get to this would maybe be set 2007.
Yeah,
But
that's
seven was a little bit different. Seven was there was more sex appeal in
yeah.
seven, and it doesn't have as much structure as seven. Maybe 97.
Yeah, I think 90s more, because from 2000 to 2010, there was people really trying to make bigger wines.
Yeah.
I thought
Yeah.
97 too, because 97 was a big crop also.
Right.
And this one had a tendency to have 18 had a lot of grapes, I've heard, and people had to really crop thin quite often. Let's go through the wines real quick. So
do you want to start with the Sauv Blanc or?
Yeah, I have it.
Okay, cool.
Where do you source the grapes then?
So most of this comes from 2 blocks that I planted up at Stagecoach, or had planted at the Stagecoach. So there's a Muscat clone and a Sauv Blanc clone. And I love the blocks up there are super intense and just really, really vibrant and beautiful. And then the Semillon is Vince Tofanelli's Old Vine Semillon in Calistoga, which is gorgeous. And then there's a little bit of Hyde, and that's it.
So it's Sauvignon Blanc
with Muscat, and it has about 27% Semillon.
Is it all stainless?
No, it's mostly used oak, Burgundian, maybe a once used for the Tofanelli. But I mean, at most I would put maybe 10% new oak on the Sauv Blanc, but not much.
So what do you want to do? Which Chardonnay should we try?
Let's start with the Rude and then do the UV afterwards. So Rude, do you know this vineyard?
I don't.
So it's just west of Grayton on the way to Occidental. So kind of in between the two.
Okay. So very cool area then. And
really cool.
Yeah. You can really get that. Cool. It has a lot of citrus.
Yeah. And it's an old clone. It's sort of a Muscat clone of Chardonnay, but it's an older clone. And when I first, and Ulysses Valdez took it over and started leasing it and recovering it. It's these hillside, this beautiful southeast facing hillside of old vines that have moss growing on them. And it's really cool.
Are they head prunes?
No, some of them are in quad. There's sections. So some are in quad, some are cordon, but they're super
amazing.
Cool. I mean, nobody really made a single vineyard Rude at that point. Maybe Boswell did, but they sold it to their mailing list. And so I didn't have anything to compare it to. And I thought it might be just a blending wine. And we like it so much, we do it alone. It's so vibrant and pretty and just.
Yeah, I agree.
It's such a fun wine to drink and it's so insanely food friendly.
Nice minerality to it as well.
Yeah.
And then the UV was interesting. I really liked it. And again, it was when I tasted it was blind. And then I saw the vineyard. And of course I like UV that Aubert makes as well. Yeah. And I was like, okay, it makes sense. This is really a fantastic wine. Have you made this for a while?
The UV, I've been making the Rude or the UV. The Rude, I think this is our second or third vintage, so not that long. I like it a lot though, and it's fun to make.
How long the UV have you been
new oak for the Rude is about 30%, just because we don't want it to be oaky. We want it to be really fresh, more Chablis like. And then the UV I've been making for Carte Blanche since 2015. And so I understand that vineyard now. took me a vintage or two, but I like it a lot. It's a warmer site, so you really have to be careful not to pick it too late because it'll just keep getting, bigger and riper and sweeter.
But you have very nice acidity there.
Yeah, the Wente, old Wente is.
Oh, it's all Wente? Awesome.
Mostly old Wente, yeah.
Okay, and then we have the Manzanita Vineyard.
I have that too. So Manzanita is on the way to Guerneville. It's on Guerneville Road coming out of Santa Rosa. And it's this little tiny 2-acre, looks like a saddle, and it's farmed organically by Ulysses, and it's all Calera.
It has this real sort of bark and potpourri, and it's so aromatic. Interestingly, did you find that 18 was more difficult for Chardonnay or Pinot in Sonoma than 17, even though 17 was so hot?
Yeah, I felt like 18, I was more conscious of not losing acidity. You know, getting the pick right where you got enough flavor development but didn't lose the freshness.
Why was that? Because I've heard that some people had problems, particularly with Pinot in 18.
I didn't really have problems. This site in particular is difficult because in 18 in particular, I just kept seeing the sugars come up, but I wasn't getting flavor development, and it smelled like cranberries, and it wasn't there yet. We were sampling this, 2 days in a row trying to get the pick date right. And poor Ulysses, I mean, I kept, scheduling, canceling just to get the day right. But I think it's just because it was a bigger crop and it was a longer season. The acid metabolism just kept going, and there was lots of foliage for, photosynthesis and manufacturing sugar.
Let's go to your cab now.
Okay. Do you want to start with the reserve?
Sure, whatever you want. Yeah.
What did you grab? The red hen? I would say reserve or red hen to start.
I have just the normal one.
Oh, the Napa Valley Cabernet.
Yeah.
Sure, we could do that too.
I found it actually has very good structure, though. I thought it would need 2 or 3 years of age in a good sense. Like I like it, but I said better after 2024.
Cool. I love the cherry notes in this too.
And also, again, like most 18s, it has lots of other character than just fruit, like some more forest flores, bark, and tile, and so really nicely, and it has a nice center palate. I think that some people, if they overcropped or they didn't watch it, it didn't really hold together. The center palate, maybe it's hollow or it doesn't have a finish, but this wine has a nice seamless, it starts nicely and ends, just goes all the ways through the palate, which I think is really, nicely done.
Yeah, that's really an interesting observation. I mean, I always think, I spend a lot of time in the summer in the growing season visiting all the vineyards and taking notes, talking to the growers and talking about canopy work that might need to be done or another pass for balancing. And I think that, that's important every year. There's always going to be a need for balancing the vineyard and getting dappled light, not too much light, not too little light, and thinking about irrigation or canopy work. And I think you always have to do it. And I think, there's some vintages that it didn't set as well. So maybe there isn't as much to do. So if something isn't farmed as meticulously, then it doesn't suffer as much as a wine. But I think 18, you did have to, it was an easy vintage, but you could leave too much fruit out. I mean, for sure.
That's what Paul Hobbs said, that it just kept on coming.
Yeah.
They had to cut back. But I think what you say is interesting because, and also in other years, if you took something like 17, the complete opposite, but you have pressure from, from the heat, and then we didn't really know about the fire. But if you have certain climatic pressures, then you have to make decisions based on that. But if you have just an open tablet, then you have to really make serious decisions. You have to know what you're doing.
Right.
It's not like, it's so hot now I got to pick. Or, like you said, or the berry set in the flowering was not good. So nature did it for you.
Right.
But so you're saying in 18, you really had to know what you're doing, or you could have had a jungle.
That's so true. And I think that's true for the pick decision as well, because it wasn't, oh my God, it's going to rain. Do I want to pick this or not?
Yeah.
Or, oh, there's a heat spike coming. Do I want to pick this or not? Instead it was, well, there are these minute changes that are happening.
Yeah.
every day. So which is the best day to pick? So it's
Yeah, that's
funny.
sort of, that's scarier.
Yes.
Because that's why you were saying you're going, calling the guy like, no, no, okay, not today, because you couldn't make up your mind because you had so many choices.
Well, that was the Pinot, and I
Yeah,
never for Pinot I don't like I don't like to go. I feel like Pinot it's more critical that you nail it.
yeah, okay.
You go one day late and it's tired.
Interesting. Yeah,
So and you pick it too early and it's not fully developed. So I just think that maybe that's
that makes
why.
sense too. But I
Yeah.
think it's, when people say it was an easy vintage, I can say from my tasting that probably, that maybe it was too easy, where
Mm-hmm.
some of the wines just don't show complete definition. Some
Right.
wines are lacking something, a
Yeah.
few wines too alcohol, so you really
Yeah.
see who really understands it the best.
Yeah. Yeah.
For example, I totally agree, and your reserve, which is interesting. So you have the blackberry fruit, but then you
Yeah.
have olives, mushrooms, and I think
Right.
that that's really cool because also until recently, Napa, it was all judged really on the fruit,
Yeah.
and you're saying also texture. Like one thing that's interesting, I've been also talking to a lot of Bordelais because I've been tasting the 2018 vintage, and all they talk about is texture. It's like they define their wines by their tannins.
Totally. Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. We just did a big kind of retrospective tasting for Keplinger.
Uh-huh.
And I loved tasting the older wines and that they were still really textural. They were just texturally beautiful and interesting and delicious and different. Vintage to vintage, they're different and they should be. So
Exactly. Well, we have that now in California, particularly Napa, which is exciting. I really think that you see the differences in vintages much more than we used to years ago.
I do too.
Like 10 years ago.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that
And you can
2000. Yeah.
yeah, almost now you can really pretty much, if you have a blind tasting, you can figure it out pretty easily by
Yeah.
normal things, by tannins, by whether it's fruit, more fruity, whatever. I think and that's really exciting. That's real connoisseurship.
It
So
is.
the reserve, tell me, so how do you do, what does reserve mean? Because I was trying to figure that out.
So the reserve. So this wine is
I
kind
think
of
it's a
fun.
step up in quality.
Yeah, step up in quality, and it started. It's evolved a little bit. So I think that's part of what the reserve label is it's something that we think is exceptional and a step up in quality, but it
Okay.
also isn't necessarily Cabernet or necessarily a red wine, or it can change. Within that naming, it has the latitude to be changeable.
So you make the call based on tasting from barrel?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So it's like the traditional reserve concept.
Right.
Mm.
Right. This one's actually a Cabernet. So this is a blend of Wapo Vineyard, Red Hen, and George
Oh,
III,
okay.
and just has a touch of Petit Verdot in it. And so it was really picking our best barrels to make a really fully dimensioned blend.
So is that supposed to be your top wine, or is the Wapo?
Do you like the Wapo?
Yeah, lots.
It's awesome.
I don't know.
I think those are actually supposed to be thought of on the same level.
Oh,
So
okay, good. So I didn't get it completely wrong. But anyways, that was a couple days ago. Let's see how it is today. But the reserve I like a lot.
cool.
Okay, which single vineyard should we try then?
I would start with Red Hen. I think it's the softest of the lineup.
Yeah, it has a lot of it has fruit, but then the black olives, and I get some tile and stone too,
Yeah, there's nice minerality.
and nice sort of velvety tannins.
Yeah, this is just one block that's nearest to Solano, so it's the farthest east on the property.
Yeah, the aromas are really impressive. Here with this wine, you could really, I say try after 2025, but it's already so attractive to taste. Like you
Yeah.
want to keep on going back, like, hold on, you get this, you get that,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah, the white stones, white pepper, and really pretty spices on the.
Should we go to George the Third or do Wapa?
Let's do George the Third, and then we'll go to
Okay.
Wapa. So George the Third. So we have a block that's right up on the Silverado Trail, and it's in the really pretty red soils. And I like this block a lot because it starts out really stony, and then the second half of it is less stony. So I think you get a really nice mix of structure and kind of minerality, and then softness and fleshness. It makes a great wine.
I like that it has a light earthiness to it, and
Mhm.
also it's quite chunky in the center palate. Not it's I said medium to full bodied, which is really in my mind sort of a compliment for Napa Valley.
Mhm.
And then it has such a solid core there of fruit and tannins.
Mhm. I love this wine. I feel like it has a lot of kind of tariness and
Yeah,
blackberry, dried herbs, but the stony and the minerality and yeah, it's not huge.
no.
It has an ethereal quality. That's really pretty. It's a prettiness.
All right, well, let's go to the Wapo then. So where is it again?
You know where Realm is now?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. So at that foot of that hill, right beneath right beneath where
And
John Charles.
Hartwell and the whole
Yeah,
thing.
right. It's on the same side of Silverado Trail. It's right across from Stag's Leap.
Oh, okay. Wow. Before it starts going flat then?
It has some flat as well.
Okay. Well, why would that be possible that Stag Sleep in particular did well in 18?
I think it has its own little microclimate.
Yeah, because you can see, again, there's so much going on here, not just black fruit, but cloves, tar, maybe pine needles, and it's
Yeah.
just so complex.
Yeah, that's funny. I wonder if it isn't, or I think it's actually the eastern side of Napa Valley. You maybe get more garrigue and more red fruit and minerality, more kind of red, kind of terracotta baked minerality, and then sort of this dried violet. And I think the airflow in Napa Valley is very interesting, and it's something that we saw with the smoke taint actually.
Yeah.
In the way that places were affected wasn't necessarily logical if you just look at the valley, but I think if you look at airflow, it becomes very logical. And I think there's
really
something about the air currents and how they flow, and maybe there's even an eddy that provides warmth even though it's sheltered from heat. So I think there's something really interesting that happens with airflow, and then trapping warm and cold air in Stag's Leap.
That's why, strangely, there's this sort of cool character to it, but then there's ripe fruit.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
Do you know
totally.
what I mean? Where you get the more, like mushrooms and pine needles and cloves and all this, but then you get ripe fruit at the same time, and the alcohol's a pretty good level as well, but you
Right.
really get that coolness.
Right. Agreed.
Great. Well, that was great. Thank you so much for the tasting and the conversation was really fascinating, and it was really fun to taste all the wines because it really gives you a nice reference to the vintage, and also Sonoma and Napa, and just getting a handle on, and everything has a real beautiful precision and like transparency to it, which I think is so so important.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Always so nice to taste with you.
All right.
All right.
Have
Thanks
a
so
great
much.
evening. Yeah.
Thanks. Take care. Have a great
Ciao.
Friday.
Okay, bye.